Hey, I've been putting this video off for a while, I think because it's such a deep rabbit hole, and I don't know where to begin, and I certainly don't know where to end. And that's not only because it's a very unusual piece of gear, but because it's a piece of gear that's designed to be used with unusual objects that aren't necessarily made for music production or pro audio. And if you've seen my recent video on the Cicada, then you know how quickly things like this can go from unboxing to this. Broken mirror shard, and I am introducing more DC offset. So finally I'm diving in. We have a Pulsar 23 made by Soma Laboratories, and it's, yeah. Now if we flip this pony up on our side, we have an 1/8 inch 3.5mm headphone output. We have a main 1/4 inch output. We have 6 assignable 1/4 inch outputs, and then we have a MIDI in. As for the main front of the unit, it might get a little monotonous, so I've hired a TikTok influencer to narrate it for us.
Thanks, Ben. So let's start with the upper left-hand side. We have 1/8 inch patch cable inputs that convert to the jumper cable format, so you can control anything and everything with your modular synthesizer. Below that, there's a handy MIDI learn function where you can simply hold down this button and the button near your destination while playing an incoming MIDI signal. Below that, we have attenuators and poles to connect to the 6/4 inch outputs. Up here, we have individual diodes and capacitors for live circuit bending, then trigger transformers. Then we have our clock and all the divisors with a reset input, and some noise, 10-volt, and ground outputs. Meet Seos. It's a sample and hold chaos generator with a 63, 16, or 217-step randomizer sequencer at 1, 2, or 3 bits. That's not complicated at all. Sound zone. Here's a kick drum, a bass tone, a snare or clap, and a hi-hat. All of these sounds are very dynamic and can be changed in crazy ways. There's also a live sequencer with different banks down here, in case you wanted to record your performances. Up on top, we have some voltage-controlled amplifiers, inverters, and some on-off switches. Wait, there's more! There's distortion and 3 types of reverb and delay that can be individually fed from each channel. Then down here, there's a dynamic low-frequency oscillator. And finally, these little circle things that you put your fingers on that tell you your percentage of body fat. Wow!
There's one immediately noticeable and very different thing about this, and that's that all of these things connect to one another using these little pulls here and alligator clips. Focus. There you go. It has its pros and cons, and the first, by far most important pro is that if you have this sitting around your house and it's all patched up and you have a guest over, they're gonna think that you're a very smart electrical engineer or something. It also allows you to stack multiple cables on the same point without having to use something like a buffered mult that you would use on a normal modular synthesizer. Also, alligator cables are really, really inexpensive, although I suppose if patch cables are too expensive for you, then now might not be the time to start collecting rare avant-garde experimental drum machines. I would obviously not recommend using a drum machine like this to lock in precise sounds or sequences. It kind of reacts to its environment, and it reacts to you depending on your impedance. I did not read the entire warranty, and I have no idea the extent of how much it covers things like this, but you can also bring in your own components and circuit bend the unit, and I did successfully do this with some resistors and diodes. If I had unlimited time, I would absolutely love to put this on a table with a proto board or an Arduino and just keep expanding and building new ways to modulate the sound. But unfortunately, I don't have unlimited time with this unit because this particular unit is going to be given away for free to one of my subscribers or Patreon members, and I'll give you more details about that later on in the video. In the meantime, I'm absolutely not going to be covering everything because this is a very deep rabbit hole. This is also not a new drum machine, and there's a very good, well-written manual for it, and Loopop also did a feature film-length video covering a lot of the details and a lot of patch ideas. So I'm just going to be showing you a quick overview and then some of the patches that I made in the last few days. Let's go. I say this with sincerity. If you are a musician or electronic musician who wants to learn more about electronics or get into the development of electronic instruments, this is the drum machine for you, and a lot of Soma Laboratories products are probably right up that alley as well. So check this out. This is the tone generator module. It's just like an oscillator. And if I press trig, nothing happens. However, if I press trig while pressing the 10 volt out, what if I lick my hands? There we go. So I'm just going to take this alligator clip and make this connection permanent, so we just have a constant tone. And now with one hand I'm just going to hold down a triangle wave LFO, and the other one I'm going to put on the pitch in. Again, if I lick my fingers, I'll have a much cleaner signal. And so these little touch circles down here basically are a more comfortable and expressive version of what I just did with my fingertips. And so if I'm to hold down this note, it's almost pressure sensitive. Okay, so here are a few more things that you might find interesting. This is our clock, and we could just create a beat by hooking things up to the clock's divider. And so one thing you might notice is that this is actually holding it down for a bit of a longer gate, like with this snare, for example. And so what I could do is just hook this clock output up to an impulse converter, and it basically just makes it into a much shorter trigger. And so now it should sound like so. Do the exact same thing with the hi-hat. Okay, so this actually has its own internal recorder too. We just have to let it know how long it will be looping. And so to do that, we can just hook up the reset to, I don't know, 0.25. So if we arm this bass note to record and then press these two at the same time, we should get And if I want to get rid of this, I could just hit delete and hold down delete throughout the entire pattern. Now, if I wanted to make my little recording shorter, I could just move the reset switch higher. And then we could just do this. Or maybe a little slower. Or I could just hook up the reset to the snares trigger. Okay, so now this kick has its own volume envelope. Can make it shorter or longer. We can actually take that envelope and have it control the pitch of the bass here. Okay, now we could of course shape that sound. And I'm going to set that up to an LFO. And that LFO can actually be synced to the clock as well. And then we could add a little bit of distortion to the whole thing. Okay, this sound is getting a little boring to me, so I am going to clock the quarter division of the main clock into the clock input of the Sheas thing here. Then I'm going to come out of the 3-bit, and that is also going to go into the note CV in of the tone. I'm going to use one of these guys as my sample and hold input. I'm going to put the 3-bit through an attenuator, maybe liven up the hi-hat here. So what do you think? I personally love it. I had a lot of fun. Perfect Circuit loaned this to me, and when I'm done with it, it's gonna go to one of you. And the link to that sweepstakes is right in the description below. For those of you who haven't used all of your experience points to level up your luck character trait, you can purchase the Pulsar 23 in orange, blue, white, or black, and it'll set you back $2,300. And if you do decide to purchase one, and if you click the link in the description to do so, you'll not only be incentivizing more giveaways on this channel, but you'll be buying me dinner at Olive Garden. The Pulsar 23 was a lot of fun. I lost a lot of time into it. I am very happy that one of my viewers gets to get their hands on it, but of course that's a little bit bittersweet because I would like to keep it around a little bit longer, so who knows, I may be buying one in the future. If you like this video, subscribe to my channel. Wait a minute, we just passed 100,000 subscribers. As a thank you, this entire week is going to be chock full of giveaway. I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. It's like my body language is disconnected from my brain. In addition to this Pulsar 23, on my stream this week, I'm going to be giving away a few Bitwig licenses and one of these Expressive touches. And of course, if you want access to a whole bunch of unreleased music, audio assets, ambisonic field recordings, and a community that has everything from game servers to monthly songwriting challenges, then my Patreon is for you, and you can join for as little as $1. All right, peace.